All right, here we go. Okay, we are, I'll call this meeting to order. February 4th, PSCRB board meeting. And we'll start with roll call. Mr. Taylor,
Present.
Ms. Fish,
Here.
Mr. Woodard,
Here.
Dr. Black,
Here.
Pastor Bennett,
Here.
and Robert, myself, and I am present as well. Okay, Mr. Hurt, do we have any public comment?
No, no one registered for public comment.
Okay, well, moving right along to the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to look at the January meeting minutes? And if you did, was there any corrections or additions that you see? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Looks like Ms. Fish and seconded by Mr. Taylor. All right, perfect. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. We're going to have to call to our closed session. So I'm going to have a motion to that we go into closed session to discuss case 2020R05.
Actually, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
actually, it's going to be, we're going to discuss personnel under 2C1 and performance
Okay.
of a specific individual.
Okay. Got it.
Just
All
a slight clarification there.
Sure. But it's in regards to complaint 2020R05, correct?
Yeah, we'll talk about that after we get out of closed session, correct?
Okay, perfect. Do I have a motion to go into closed session? Ms. Fish and seconded by Mr. Taylor. So what you guys will have to do is we'll have to log out. You're gonna have to go to your email. There is a link that was sent to your email. We'll log back in through there. Once we finish that closed session, there will be another email to come back to this session. Okay, so make sure you check your email.
Log out here. I understand we're going to take a roll call here and then we're going to
Yes.
go back into closed session.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, no worries. Okay.
Is Phil there and able to make us go back live so this can be seen by the public, Mr. Chairman?
It is live.
It is?
Yeah, we're live.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're just waiting for Serena. I did talk to her.
Okay.
Pastor Bennett there.
And just for purposes of the public, we realize that the motion wasn't made and seconded and roll call taken on the closed session. So we will redo that and then go back into closed session. Fun with virtual meetings.
Yeah.
We're waiting on Serena Fish. This one. Yeah, this one. There she is.
Mr. Chairman, we just need a motion to go into closed session to discuss performance of a specific individual under 2C1.
Jeff,
Okay.
Motion.
Sorry, guys. My apologies. We did not make a motion and second and roll call on the previous one. So that's why we had to jump back in here. May I have a motion to go
A
into
motion.
closed session to discuss personnel 2C1?
Motion.
Mr. Woodard has first and Ms. Fish has second. Now I'll call roll call. Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Dr. Black,
Yes.
Pastor Bennett,
Yes.
Serena Fish,
Yes.
Jeff Woodard,
Yes.
and Robert, yes, I myself. So we'll just do this again, guys. My apologies.
And thank you. And for purposes of the public, we will come back. There will be discussion and potential action items after our closed session. So now we'll go into the closed session.
We will have to make a motion to join the open session again, correct, Jeff? Yeah, no, she had to step out for like 10 to 15 minutes, but she said maybe later on she will be back. Oh, she is back. Okay, good. Waiting on here. Pastor Bennett and Jeff. Oh, okay. Looks like we're just waiting on Pastor Bennett.
Chairman Vasquez, we have someone who has signed up for public comment. Jeff, is this something we can go back to catch him, or?
It's at the pleasure of the board. Had he signed up ahead of time as required?
No.
No, so then it's really at, the discretion of the board if you want to allow him to make comment at this point in time.
That's actually incorrect. I did register beforehand.
What's
That's
that?
why I linked
Oh,
to
he
this.
did? Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I did talk to IT and he did sign up yesterday.
And yes, then I would say go ahead and obviously let him speak for 3 minutes.
Okay, we will do that after item number 6.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's call our meeting back into open session. We'll start with roll call. Mr. Taylor,
Present.
Ms. Fish,
Here,
Dr. Black,
Present.
Mr. Woodard,
Present.
Pastor Bennett,
Here.
and Robert, myself, am here. So we will discuss the actions of the case in 2020-R05. We just come back from discussion of the complaint, and I want to hear if anybody has any thoughts other than what we talked about in closed session that you would like to talk about currently, and before we decide the status of the complaint. So hearing none, do we find that, can we use names?
I think the proper motion would be if you believe that the police department followed its procedures and protocols
Okay.
and properly investigated the complaint, then a motion would be to make that finding.
Get it, okay. So do we have a motion that the Bloomington Police Department followed all protocols and or ordinances that they may be of the complaint, of the formal complaint that was filed, number 2020-R05? Ms. Fish?
I'd like to move that we say yes to that based on protocol at that time.
And do we have a second to that?
So move. I second it.
And is there any other discussion? Hearing none. So we as the PSCR board find that the Bloomington Police Department.
You still need to do a roll call. Sorry.
Okay, sorry about that. So we'll go ahead and Mr. Taylor, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Ms. Fish,
Yes,
Dr. Black,
Yes.
Mr. Woodard,
Yes.
Pastor Bennett,
Yes.
and Robert, yes, myself. Now can we open up for discussion?
Yes, the other action on these complaints are there any policies that the board wants to recommend in relation to the complaints?
Thank you, Jeff. Ms. Fish, go ahead.
I'd like to move or suggest that offering formal complaint paperwork is part of a process, and that there is some kind of record on any of these things, and that it was offered, even if not received. It doesn't hurt to offer. To me, that covers the complainant and the police department. Thank you. So I'm moving for that policy change.
So what I'm hearing is that you want to recommend that when somebody has any kind of complaint to the Bloomington Police Department, and they come in contact with whether it be a sergeant, a lieutenant, or just a police officer, that the Bloomington Police offer a formal written option. Is that correct? Or can they, in discussion, just talk about it, and then at that time, if nothing is mentioned about a formal complaint, we're okay? Is that what you're saying?
I'm good with that, yes. But it's always made aware to the complainant that it's item or option B or option C.
So Mr. or Chad, help me out here. So when somebody comes in and wants to file a complaint, let's just say they come in with a mind, they say, hey, I want to file a complaint. What is the process of that from the Bloomington Police Department? Did the Bloomington Police Department say, hey, let's talk about it first, or here's the options, file a complaint, we can discuss it, or as you mentioned before, sometimes that they just don't know the situation or policy?
It's kind of all the above, to be honest with you. I mean, when somebody comes in and says that they have an issue or they have a concern, want to file a complaint or complain, the terminology changes all the time. The job of our supervisors is to go out and hear that person. That is what they have been charged to do. I don't want them just, okay, fill out this paperwork, don't talk to them. We want to talk to them to see if we can solve this issue now, versus having the complainant or whoever's down there have to wait for some type of resolution. So I want them to go out there, ask what has happened, what's going on, what can I do to try and help you with this? 9 times out of 10, that solves the issue right there. It could be a misunderstanding, something that, hey, I saw this officer speeding. Can you please talk to him about his speed? Okay, yes, I will talk to him about his speed, and I'll let him know that somebody has come down here and wanted that addressed. So it could be a multitude of different things. I don't know if that answers what you were asking there, but going straight to, oh, hey, just say the speed thing, you want to file a formal complaint on the officer's speed. That complainant doesn't get any resolution right then, because then the complaint has to go through a process of an investigation and everything. So we can't go address that right now. So I don't know if that answers what you're asking there or not, but.
Yes, it does. I guess another question too that I have is, so say I call into the police department and say, hey, I have a complaint. Will the Bloomington Police, would it always be protocol that I myself as a citizen have to come in to the Bloomington Police Department and talk about the complaint, or can a police officer or sergeant or lieutenant come to me in my place where I feel comfortable and discuss that complaint?
Absolutely. We can do either one, as well as talk to you over the phone. Especially with the COVID stuff, a lot of people don't want to talk in person, which is completely understandable. So yeah, we'll talk to you about your issue, complaint, whatever, on the telephone, see if we can resolve it that fashion. If that involves the supervisor going and talking to somebody and then calling you back, if that is what you're asking for, absolutely. That's what our supervisors are tasked with doing.
Thank you. Is anybody else? Pastor Bennett.
Okay, so couple of things. So if as a board we look at it and we decided that for the lieutenant's investigation of the matter, things were good on that end. But if we see something problematic between the first engagement, where we may think, well, does there need to be some type of policy so that that situation does not happen? I almost feel like as a board who wants or that needs to bridge the gap between our police department and our community, we have to be conscious that there was some confusion in that situation. So if you have a citizen whose mindset is to come make a complaint, and you have a police department in which I agree with Chief Wamsley that is trying to be responsive to a person's complaint. And so they're going to ask, which I think they should, hey, can we help you? Can we do anything about this? Can we have a conversation about it? Which I think is right to do. However, I think if the board is looking at both of those mindsets, we see in this situation that the citizen's mindset was not that the conversation take place of their written complaint. And so the confusion came in was not made clear to the officer at that time. So the officer, in engaging in a conversation, perceives it that me dealing with this without writing it is okay. The citizen walks away thinking that because of us having this conversation, something's going to be documented. So we have a miscommunication, as we think we stated there. So I guess my question to the board is, should not something be done to prevent that, even if they continue to have a conversation when needed? If a person's desire is to make a complaint, calling back a week after is suggestive that, hey, I'm checking on the status. Why can't you find anything? Why wasn't anything written? Even if a conversation is had, does it still need to be then stated to the citizen? Yes. Okay, we're having this conversation, because I think what we see, at least for me, I see that the officer understood that there was being a complaint. I took it that the officer understood that there was a complaint, just chose to deal with it by him engaging his superior. So I think it was even clear in the language that there was a complaint. It just wasn't a written complaint. And that seems to be what the citizen wants. So I guess, Chief Wamsley, when you stated kind of how that kind of interaction can happen a lot, does this confusion happen a lot? Where somebody might have expected off of a conversation that there would have been a complaint, that there actually wasn't a written one?
I've been dealing with the complaint aspect for 5.5 years now. This is the first time I've heard of it. One suggestion that I just want to kind of throw out there, and you guys as a board can kind of go with what you want on that aspect, but a solution that I see that possibly could work towards this is, I'm fearful of going and approaching everybody, trying to push out formal complaint paperwork to them, because I think that's going to, instead of bridging a gap, I think that's going to scare some people away. I really do. So my solution that I think I could throw out is, say for instance like this, if we have somebody come down and they have a complaint with our supervisor, they speak about it, the supervisor thinks, okay, this is an issue that I can solve at the supervisory level versus the internal affairs level. Before that person leaves, that supervisor provides the complainant with a business card with their number on it and say, hey, give me a call a week from now if you have any questions in regards to how the outcome of my conversation with so-and-so officer is, and go that route on these quote unquote informal complaints. I just want to throw that out there and maybe see what you guys think.
Thank you for answering that. Does anybody have any other questions, comments? Yes, Dr. Black.
I really like that. I think at the end of the conversation, as we wrap up the conversation, we say, I thank you for having this conversation with me. If you want to do a formal complaint, you'll need to write it out. If not, here's my business card. Please call me back in a week and let's talk some more about this and see where we are or whatever. Or you can say that one first and then if you want to do a formal complaint. But I think you need to put that option out there at the end, just as a wrap up, just so you don't have that confusion that the citizens walking away thinking they've got something, they got something written down or they've got a formal complaint or whatever. And 9 times out of 10, nobody's going to want to do a formal complaint. But as long as you put it out there, then you know you're covered. You've done your part.
Mr. Woodard, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to add, the chief, I like the way you laid out that scenario because in effect, that's really what we want to happen. We want good relations. We want good communication. We want people to be able to talk to each other if they have a problem. If somebody's not wearing a mask and they're supposed to be wearing a mask, that they get a mask. And it doesn't have to be built up to 8 to 10 weeks of investigation and 30 pages of documents and a PSCRB meeting. That's what we want to happen. So I like the way you laid that out because I know you said earlier, it was a slippery slope, but at the same time, and keep this in mind as well, with Reverend Black is stating that if I have a conversation with somebody and it's a complaint, and I can communicate with them to see if they're satisfied with what it is that's going to happen, or maybe what's going to happen can't happen that day. I mean, a mask, you can do something right then and there, but if there's something else and it's informal, you may put yourself in a position where we say, well, we'll look into it or we'll take care of it. And then it's out there and then the person may have some other expectations. So that, I guess to wrap it all up, I like the scenario, but at the end of the day, when it's over and said and done, when that person leaves the contact with your institution, they leave under the understanding that they know they won't be coming back to say that they think they have a formal complaint filed and they don't. Right? I mean, I'm just saying anything that we can do to prevent that from happening, I'm with that.
Okay. So, and I'll just, we'll wrap this up. And again, I agree that we want to build relationships, not put up barriers. And quick action, as Chief Walmsley stated, that if you come in, you have a complaint and it's taken care of right there, to me, that's more of building that relationship. Now, if I come in and right away I get approached by saying, hey, wait a minute, before we even say anything, here are your 3 options that you have to do. To me, already right there, that's telling me, oh, wait a minute, they're not wanting to talk with me, and there's already a barrier. This is me talking. So I'm not for, and this is one time, right? If this happens again, absolutely. Would I recommend a policy? I absolutely would recommend a policy. But for a one-time deal, I myself don't feel that a policy needs to be recommended. But again, this is up to the board. So as a whole board, do we want to recommend any policy? Mr. Taylor.
So there's a motion on the table that basically is recommending that we recommend a policy. Then I guess I'm asking then, would Serena be willing to withdraw her motion and for us to take no formalized action for a policy recommendation?
Ms. Fish.
Yes, the only thing that I was really saying was that I'm not asking to change the policy. I'm just was saying that before this person walks away, again, we didn't see the camera. So to me, with this particular thing, if on the camera, the person says they're happy, why are we discussing this to begin with?
Pastor Bennett?
I don't know if Serena was finished. I didn't want to cut her off. Are you done,
I'm
Serena?
sorry, Serena.
That's fine. Go ahead, hon.
No, so, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it was in the complaint that the complainant said that they were happy. It seems to me that the complainant stated that it was okay for the officer to dialogue, to take his complaint and get some information about it, to kind of investigate it, to give that complaint, right? That wouldn't be suggested to me. By him calling back a week, it seems that he didn't understand that that part of that process would not include a written complaint, which is why then he comes back in to file a written complaint, even though he might have okayed the officer to verbally discuss it. And so I would not be suggestive of a policy change as to every time someone comes in there to talk to an officer to have to say, you know, that, because some people just want to come in and have a conversation, talk some more, and they may get it worked out like, okay, thank you, officer, I didn't understand that. And they don't even want to file nothing. But in the case where I would be okay with it is only for right now from this situation, in the case where it was clear to an officer that there was a complaint, not just a conversation, oh, okay, cool, I got to understand and know why that happened, to where there is not the second situation, because the second situation, officer handled that right on the spot. I'll go get some masks right now. Okay, cool. That situation was taken care of right then. But the first situation wasn't a situation that was going to have a right then answer. It was a situation that had to go and have some investigation to it. So in that type of situation, the officer seemed to know there's a complaint where we need to look into something that caused this situation. So do we even want written documentation for that? But to me, that's only in a situation where an officer doesn't view it just as, oh, we're just having this citizen just wanted some information. They wanted to understand why something happened. I gave it to them. They were cool. I don't think you need to ask them if they want a complaint for that. But if someone's coming in frustrated, upset about something with our officers, to the point where you feel like, okay, well, I got to go take this to a superior, and you view it as a complaint because they're complaining about this, and you view them complaining about the other officers in the building, but they were able to take care of that right then. I would be a little more apt to then say in that type of situation, but just to make an officer have to say it, I don't know if that's necessary.
Chief Wamsley.
Yeah, just kind of a quick response. I completely hear where you're coming from and everything. And one thing I'll say, kind of, I don't know if I said it here or in closed session, but in regards to the second part of yours, okay, that takes a little investigation to look into something. That's, to me, kind of almost similar to, like, say somebody comes down there to report some officer speeding. That's something that we can't handle right there on the spot, but it's something that can be looked into fairly quickly and taken care of. So I just want to, if we're talking about the same types of things, I mean, that's going to be a hard thing for supervisors to delineate. Okay, where do we fall? I mean, we got a lot of responsibility on the supervisors as it is, but now trying to just figure out where are we falling for a formal complaint versus an informal complaint on somebody who just comes down to, do you see where I'm getting at?
Thank you. Yes, Serena.
Okay. I really feel like I was not every single time someone comes to talk to somebody. But if it's something where there is a follow-up on, where they've got to talk to an officer, or if there's not a complaint, but at least there's some kind of a trail. Because maybe if someone went back to this person and said, okay, we did talk, and now, just so you know, I mean, we've already done this mask thing, I don't know how many times now, that now the policy is and the policy is mandatory mask, and citizens had something to do with that. It was unclear. So now it is mandatory that they wear the mask. But if you're in a situation where there is a follow-up, that would, to me, require possibly some kind of a process to where you did follow up, you documented it, and if the complainant wasn't happy, then let them do a written complaint.
Okay, so to wrap it all up, do we have a motion that we want to suggest the policy? And if so, I would ask that you make the motion and then we can vote on it. Or there could be a motion that we don't find any that we don't recommend any policy. Yes, Dr. Black.
I thought Serena had a motion on the floor. And so
Serena.
you have to deal with her motion before you can call for another motion.
Okay, Serena.
But
will
what you can call for, you can state her motion and then ask her to withdraw it.
Serena, will you state your motion?
Right.
So you
And-
have to state it.
Okay, I'm also have the I'm not asking for every complaint
Right.
requires a written. All I'm asking is to consider that when you have a complaint and it requires a follow-up, that there's some kind, a record, and that you followed up on it. And then if the complainant is not happy, they are offered the opportunity to file a formal complaint. That would be my motion.
Okay. Do we have a second? We do not have a second. So Jeff, could you help us out here? If we don't have a second on
It falls off the table.
perfect.
Now go to where you were going.
Correct.
So we will not make any motion, any recommendations of any policy changes in regards to complaint 2020-R05. And now we will vote. Mr. Taylor,
I will so move that we make no formal recommendation, and that requires a second.
and Ms. Fish second. Okay, and now we will vote on that. Dr. Black,
Yes.
Jeff Woodard,
Yes.
Pastor Bennett, Pastor Bennett, I'm sorry.
Can I do a non-vote? Can I
can abstain.
abstain? Yeah, I'm going to abstain.
Serena Fish,
I thought I already voted. Yes.
and myself, yes. All right.
I think, Robert, I think Jeff needs to vote. I don't know if his name got called.
Yeah, he already voted.
Okay.
I did not vote.
All right,
Oh, okay.
Taylor.
Somebody didn't vote.
Mr.
Somebody
Taylor.
didn't vote.
And Jeff had his hand up.
Aye.
All right. So we moved on with that one.
We got to finish the business of voting first, so then I'll speak. But if we're done with that,
We are done with voting.
I just had a question for the chief. Each officer has to file a shift report, right? At the end of do they file a report at the end of their shift?
They do what's called a shift activity. That's just an email that's sent out to the department to kind of highlight any calls that may hold over to their shift or may impact another shift.
Oh, okay. Okay, I just figured maybe that, I mean, again, we're not making any motions to change any policies, but we are as a board able to also make just recommendations that maybe that's the place where you can you can record that you had an interaction with a citizen in that report, you know?
And I will state, if we have somebody that's very irate or something that comes down there, that typically does make that type of activity that gets passed along, because that could impact another shift. So that's something that's currently already in place.
And then that way we would also know that it's something that's been repeated, because as we've discussed on many a time and looking at some of these cases and didn't recommend any changes, some of that was based on the fact that it was something that wasn't repeated. Does anybody recall that?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
I just want to thank you, the board. These are extremely important conversations that we have, and you know, we have to be as thorough as possible. So thank you for your patience, and thank you for your time as well, in reviewing these complaints, because this is what we're here for. We will move on to, actually, we'll go back up to number 3, the public comment. Mr. Hurt is, I believe, public comment on.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, you will have 3 minutes. You can go ahead, sir.
I now understand the meaning of Kafkaesque. You are speculating on what you believed at the time occurred in this complaint, and I'm the one who filed the complaint, and I'm literally right here. And of course, you guys could ask me. Anyway, my name is Zachary Gitrich. I was the one who made the complaints regarding masks that you reviewed the previous month. I was disappointed that no one from this board reached out to me regarding these complaints. It does say in the bylaws, Chapter 2, Section 1A, that all parties involved are supposed to be notified. I find it frustrating that a board that was ostensibly created with the purpose of reviewing complaints and bridging the gap between police and the community isn't even interested in hearing from the people giving complaints. The reason I filed those complaints for review, despite them being upheld, is that I believe all complaints should receive civilian review. So in principle, I will always recommend that complaints be sent for review regardless of the outcome. I wanted to be present at this meeting so that I could at least be heard on my current complaint that you just reviewed. On July 21st, 2020, I lodged a mask complaint against an officer. At this point, I was unfamiliar with the complaint process. I spoke with a sergeant who claimed he would address the issue. A week later, I returned to BPD to follow up and find out any result. I was dismayed to find out from the office worker that there was no record of my complaint. I then became more knowledgeable about the complaint process and refiled the complaint. The reason I filed this complaint, which you've already reviewed, is that I believe the officer in question should have instructed me on the proper procedure for filing an official complaint. While the police department claims the officer did follow through on my original complaint, again, there appears to be no public record of this until I filed an official complaint. I also want to be clear that I'm saying I was unsatisfied with the resolution. We're actually talking about 2 different things. On the one hand, someone wants the police to address something, and on the other hand, there is some kind of written report of the complaint. Let's be clear, the complaint is that there is no record of this. It's not about a mask complaint that was already taken care of. This leads me to believe that the officer in question believed my complaint to be incidental and unworthy of being recorded. This makes me wonder, what other complaints are people making that the police view as incidental? Are there other complaints being lodged by people who are unfamiliar with the complaint process? We don't know, because by definition, there is no record. How do we know this is a one-time thing? Being a police officer comes with a certain lived experience. Most people are not being dispatched to chaotic situations, so the lived experience that comes with this does contain a unique value. However, it also contains with it a bias that influences the way phenomena are interpreted. There are many incidents of police misconduct that the police themselves, because of their bias, do not believe are wrong, despite the general public thinking they are wrong. I'd also like to mention that after I filed this complaint on either Saturday, November 14th or the 21st at around 4:40 p.m., I exited my house discovering a car in front of my neighbor's house. The individual inside the car appeared to be the officer who I just filed a complaint against. This was in a private vehicle, not a police vehicle. The individual in the car was staring directly at me. When I looked directly at the individual, they did not avert their eyes, which people normally do when they don't know someone. They wanted me to know that they saw me. I reached into my own vehicle to grab something, but before I could record the incident, the officer in question fled the scene.
Mr. Gitrich, I asked you to wrap it up. 3 minutes are up. I ask you, go ahead and wrap it up.
Oh man. So, the board was created because, people feel that their statements are not being given the appropriate weight in police incidents. Seeing how many problems I've had filing complaints and feeling heard, me being a person of a Caucasian persuasion, college educated with more free time than many working people, I hope this board would be willing to make recommendations to change some of these restrictive bylaws. Board members should want to hear from the people filing these complaints. However, it is my understanding that board members don't even know the names of the complainants. How can their voices be heard if their own names are silenced from the very group that is intended to be a bridge? I don't even have a way of contacting you without going to the city first. I tried to request just your email addresses so I could reach out about issues, and the city refused to give me.
All right, Mr. Goodrich. I'll have to go ahead and stop you now. You're way over your 3 minutes. I will recommend that you join our quarterly meetings.
I would also point out that you could vote to extend my time.
Can we do that, Jeff? I don't see a problem why we couldn't. Is Jeff on here? I don't see him. We'll go ahead and do we vote? Can we vote motion to extend? We'll give you 2 more minutes, Mr. Goodrich. I'll have make a motion to give Mr. Goodrich 2 more minutes of public comment. Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Woodard.
Yes.
Dr. Black.
Yes.
And I also say yes. So you have 2 more minutes, Mr. Goodrich.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So anyway, however, it is my understanding that board members don't even know the names of the complainants. How can their voices be heard if their own names are silenced from the very group that is intended to be a bridge? I don't even have a way of contacting you without going to the city first. I tried to request just your email addresses so I could reach out about issues, and the city refused to give them to me. Then I come to understand that had I contacted any of you about my complaints, that you would be required to recuse yourselves for possible conflict of interest. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. How can you be a bridge when if someone utilizes you to get to the other side, you become disconnected? I personally think you should review all cases. I think it is interesting that you don't, because I have access to all the complaints in the last 3 years via FOIA. So I've seen more complaints than you guys have. But you, the public officials tasked with reviewing the complaints, do not. I think you should make a recommendation to city council to change the bylaws so that you can review every complaint. And if you or the complainant wants to vote on procedure, you should be able to bring it up. I also think it is a little silly that you go into executive session to review complaints that are redacted and reveal no private information. Why even go into executive session, especially considering these redacted complaints are public? If I can FOIA them, then they are public. And also, I would be happy to show anybody the video of me going in and make the complaint, since apparently that wasn't available to you. But that's all that I have. I do hope that next month that we will be allowed to kind of come in and have a more general, less restrictive conversation around this.
Thank you, Mr. Goodrich, for your public comment. So we'll go ahead now and go to jump back to number 7 on the update on complaints received by the Bloomington Police Department. This is Chief Walmsley.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, as of today's date, we've received 3 sworn complaints. All of the 2020 complaints, we had 2 that were still pending last meeting. They have been closed out. Letters should have went out either today or yesterday. Just with COVID, depends on when the secretaries are back. So them should be on their way out. Of the 3 complaints that we've received so far this year, we have 1 that is dissatisfied with service. We have 1 for harassment, and we have 1 that's unknown really exactly what their actual complaint is right now. That's going to take a little digging into yet. In regards to the TASER report that I had explained to you guys before, that'll come out as well. It went out yesterday at the MAP meeting, but I'll let you guys know the disposition of that for January 2021 as well. We had 3 incidents that involved a taser. We had one where a taser displayed against a Caucasian. We had one where taser probes were deployed on a Caucasian, and we had one where taser probes were deployed on a African American.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Chief Walmsley on complaints received? Mr. Taylor.
Yes, Chief Walmsley, per your estimation of the 3 formal complaints that we've received so far in 2021, do you foresee any of those complaints being possibly escalated to a formal review by the PSCRB?
I will say there is probably one. I've talked to Chairman Vasquez already about it. It's a very unique situation. I'm not going to go into any details on it, but I think you guys will all understand if that one does. I'll be able to explain a little more, but it's not a major issue by no means.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Ms. Fish. You're muted, Ms. Fish.
I just wanted to thank the chief for the session that we all got with the complaint and then watching the video that he had us all. I understand we've all seen at this point. I think that really shows quite well. You need to go all the way through to the end before you make a decision. So I thank him for that presentation.
Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to number 8 on general updates by the Wilmington Police Department. Mr. Assistant Chief Walmsley. Sorry.
You're fine. One thing I will say, I forgot to mention on the first one, the 3 complaints that we did have, that's in reference to 3,936 calls for service. I forgot to put that out there. I'm sorry. Real quickly, we are kind of moving forward with our new hiring. I think I mentioned last meeting, we are down 5 officers. I have 3 more retirements I believe are coming up before May, and probably several more this year. So I'm going to be on a hard charge here to try and hire some people. Just want to give you a little breakdown of our last group. We are now through oral interviews. These guys, the remaining candidates, are in the background process. Just some numbers for you. We had 221 people apply online. Of that 221 people that applied, only 127 signed up and took the written test. And that's an online test. That's not an in-person, so you can take it in at your own home. So we lost about half there. Of the 127 that took the written test, 80 passed. So we knocked a big chunk off there. Of the 80 that passed the written test, only 40 passed the physical fitness test. Of the 40 that passed the physical fitness test, 23 passed the interview and 2 people were no-shows. So I was down to 21 people that have passed the interview or are in the background process right now for us to kind of go through. Just a quick breakdown, and this is based upon the applicants. We had 35 females, 32 Hispanics, 1 American Indian, 5 Asians, 51 African Americans, and 1 Pacific Islander in this testing process. The last thing I just want to mention real quick, I don't know if I said this last meeting or not, but we have partnered up with Dr. Cedric Williams with Legacy Consulting Group and to put on some training for the entire department. So he has teamed up with our PIO, John Furman, and everybody in the department's going through an entire day of training. Included in this training is resilience, PTSD, cultural competence, and de-escalation. So we've done the first 2 days of that class Tuesday and Wednesday this week. We'll have 2 more, I believe, next week, and then 2 more the week after that. After we're done, we'll have covered the entire department through that training. So just want to give you a quick update on that.
Thank you. Sorry, I was muted. Any questions for Assistant Chief Wamsley before we move on to item number 9? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 9, which is the strategy update for community listen meetings on police policies and the Not in Our Town survey. Mr. Taylor and Dr. Black, you guys had forwarded me the updated version of the questionnaire. Could you go into a little more detail, and do you have dates for these community listen meetings?
Okay. I'll start first. We met with Mike Matika toward the middle of January to kind of tweak and review certain changes to the survey that we were asked to look at from Not in Our Town. The discussion between Dr. Black, myself, and Mike Matika went very well, and we made several revisions to the original survey. I believe all of you should have had seen a copy of the revised version of the survey, and we took several of your suggestions as to what we wanted to see in the survey and some revisions to it. First being the opening introduction and intent paragraph that included the PSCRB as well as Not in Our Town and several other allied groups that would be facilitating this non-scientific survey that we want to put on the city website and advertise to many social and city organizations for them to conduct and to review and take part in the survey. The first question that we saw was really very open-ended. We asked that the person taking the survey rank their top 5 priorities for what they wanted to see, the priorities of the Bloomington Police Department, and that was a pretty easy fix. The rest of the questions are pretty much intact. We tweaked some of the language to some of those, and we hope that by the review of the city legal, that they can formalize this survey via SurveyMonkey or some other form of format that can be used on the city website and accessible to anyone who wants to take the survey. Several of the questions we left space for individuals to express themselves beyond what was stated on the survey, and allowed for, and what we're hoping on the SurveyMonkey is that they'll be allowed to add additional comments to basically explain the reasoning for their selection of an individual aspect of the survey. Dr. Black, we also discussed some dates, and I'll let Dr. Black talk about those, and then we can talk about how we want to proceed from here and answer any questions about the survey that you may have. Dr. Black.
I have a question. What time is this meeting over?
Hopefully in the next 10 minutes.
Okay. So it's 3:30 to 5:15 is what?
Actually, it's 4:45, but we're a little over on time.
Okay. the survey is in your hands now, and I guess the next step, it has to go through city, through the lawyers. And once it goes through the lawyers, we need to know how would the city distribute this survey? Will they use a Survey Monkey, or will they use some other kind of electronic distribution process? And whatever that distribution process is, can we have the link so that we can also distribute it that way? We want to know, can the calendar first Thursdays from 5:30 to 6:30, or third Thursday from 5:30 to 6:30 for a couple of months to get these listening sessions? The plan is to invite at least 3 different groups, that they would send 3 members, and this is Zoom, we're talking about Zoom, to the town hall, discuss what was covered in the survey and issues that were not covered in the survey. And maybe by the summer, we'll be able to have some in-person meetings, but we're all talking about Zoom at this time.
Since we are talking about Zoom, is there a way that we can include it with the quarterly meetings, or you want to have a totally separate meeting?
Oh, we could. How long is the quarterly meeting?
I believe we usually have 2 hours for that. So
could we dedicate 1 hour to the survey?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I think that we need to put that out there, that we want to either have taken the survey or be prepared to discuss the survey for an hour. You know, let people know that in advance.
Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Dr. Black. I'm in total agreement that the quarterly meeting would be an excellent way for us to initiate the first conversations about the survey, and while the city is working on putting the survey on the city website and getting whatever legal approvals we need to make that happen. But I definitely believe that the quarterly meeting is a perfect format for us to, one, introduce the survey, the purposes of it, and what the intent for the information that we're seeking to get from the entire community, not just from our so-called stakeholders, but we want a pretty much a community-wide input for the information that we're seeking. Second of all, we could then at that time during the quarterly meeting ask for individuals who may be interested in doing the so-called rap sessions, if you will, to discuss the results of the survey in such a way that we have more intense input from those people who may wish to express themselves in a more discussion format than on a kind of a cold survey, if you will. But I agree that the quarterly meeting would be a perfect format for that.
Yes, Dr. Black.
Mr. Taylor, you just changed the whole thing. What you said just changed the whole thing. Either you're going to have them come and discuss the survey, answer the questions or whatever, or you're going to have them do a more intense discussion of the survey. You can't have both going on.
Well, but hang on, Dr. Black.
When is the quarterly?
Look at
March 4th.
The quarterly is on March 4th, and the last part of the survey, we were saying the last question is, would you be willing to participate in a focus group to discuss aspects of the survey about the Bloomington Police Department? And that, I believe, the focus groups were more in addition to the the quarterly meeting, which has been and somewhat is not as well attended as perhaps we would like it to be. But once people have the survey in their hands and they're able to complete the survey, that question becomes pertinent about focus groups.
Yes, I understand that. So are you saying that the quarterly meeting would be a focus group?
It can be a focus group, but we may have additional people after they've taken the survey that may not have attended the quarterly meeting, that we could have some follow-ups.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that we put it on the agenda and kind of like an introduce to the public this survey, because we can't ask the public to give us feedback on a survey that they have no idea, that they have they don't know about. So we introduce it. In the meantime, I talk to City Legal and get it on our website, and then hopefully we get links to, once it's on there, we can also as well push it out and put it on the agenda for the public to discuss at the next quarterly meeting. Is that something?
That's at the discretion of the board anyway. So
right.
It's that would be my suggestion, and I'm just kind of open to what the board has to say about it.
Anybody else have any other suggestions? Yes, Serena.
When we did something like this before at our quarterly meetings, and we kind of put some information out there beforehand, the stakeholders were very vocal. Like one of the questions on here about the new chief will come from, they were extremely vocal, almost 100%, that they wanted someone local. So I think Reverend Black and Mr. Taylor are right, but let's get it out there once legal has said okay, and give them something to look at and advertise that come to the quarterly meeting and participate in
Yes.
keeping it or adding, or what did we miss? Thank you.
Any other comments board may have? Yes, Mr. Taylor.
I think that it would behoove us to, early in many of our early meetings of the PSCRB, we had a pantograph presence, and we also would have local radio stations present at some of our meetings, and it was easier for us to communicate information that we had to share or we didn't have to share. So it would be my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, that we reach out to some of those entities to help us publicize first the quarterly meeting, and then secondly the survey that we're going to be asking for feedback from across the entire spectrum of the community that would be found on the city website.
I can certainly do that. I will do both. And I will share the survey with them. But in the meantime, I will talk to City Legal and make sure that we get that put on the website as well. So that will be an agenda item, if everybody's okay with that. Okay. Okay, anything else on that before we move to item number 10?
I just wanted to know, did anybody have any questions about the survey, first of all?
Oh.
And if they did, what would they be? Suggestions for things that maybe we didn't ask, that members of the board might, after you've had time to review it, whether or not there were any suggestions or additions.
Pastor Bennett.
I don't have any suggestions, but I just wanted to say I thought they were good questions.
Serena?
It's basically the same thing I was going to say. And I do like the way they revised a couple of things and made it more of a choice rather than kind of like suggesting things to people. I'd like to see if we have an opportunity to get a little bit more information about the person that's being considered for chief, their history, their training. It seems like we've kind of like skipped over that whole thing. And I'd like to get more of that in the existing questions. In addition to.
Okay, so are you asking that they add more questions to this survey?
No, I'm just saying that's one of the things I'm looking for. So in the quarterly thing, that's the kind of things that are going to come up because that's the kind of information I've been asked or suggested to.
Okay. Dr. Black and Mr. Taylor, thank you very much for your help and your time on this survey, along with Mr. Matika. And again, I will get with City Legal. I will also contact the radio station, or I'm sorry, the Pantograph and WGLT, and if I can get on any other radio station to promote our quarterly meeting and share the survey with them.
That'll be good.
Okay. Anything else for on number 10? Okay.
Just real quick,
I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead, Jeff.
WXRJ. And add that to the list.
All righty. Thank you. Number 10 is the update on the vacancy that we currently have on our board. I did talk to Mayor Renner, and the two people, and I won't mention any names, that we did recommend. I asked what the status was, and he said that due to social media posts that they had posted and some other tied affiliations that they had, that the city council was ready to vote no on both of those. So that's why those names were pulled. So there is no vote. He does have a recommendation for this coming Monday, and I forgot the name, and I don't want to say the wrong name, but he has somebody that he's going to bring to city council for a vote to join our board, and that will be on this Monday's city council meeting. Again, I can't remember the name, and I don't want to.
Oh,
Hi,
Miss
Dr. Black. It's Corey Tello.
yeah.
Dr. Black,
Corey,
you want to mute
Corey.
real quick?
Oh, I thought I did.
That's okay. So that is the update that I have. Mr. Taylor, you had a question.
Yes. The question I had to do, has the council voted on the youth member of the that we recommended that be included on the board? And if so, do we have a recommendation for that individual?
So that will be also on Monday. That is going to the board on Monday. And I also have an ordinance that Jeff sent me right before our meeting. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I will share it with the board after this meeting today as well. The youth member ordinance is on there. He did share that with me, and they have that ready to go. And I will share it with you after the board meeting. Ms. Fish, did you have something?
I was just going to add the two people that we unanimously picked out and recommended. One of them was picked and then not picked. They rescinded it. The other person that we recommended, I ran into them at a meeting, and she has never been contacted by city or the mayor.
Okay.
So I'm questioning what happened.
I
Because
will.
We,
will have to get clarification on that because
would please, because I would really like to know.
even Mayor Renner, I just talked to him last week. He was whether we had the wrong number or not, but I do have his number now where I can call him directly. But he had said that it had fallen off of his radar as well. He thought that we already had a board member and we didn't. I mean, I think we're going on like 4 or 5 months now. So I will follow up on if he had, do you have that, share that name with me after the meeting?
Okay.
Okay. That way I can follow up on that. But there is going to be, again, like I said, a vote on a member tomorrow at tomorrow's city council. I'm sorry, at Monday's city council meeting. Yes, Mr. Taylor, but we also have to remember that the mayor is the one that picks the board. He said it was one of those situations where he would give us some leeway and recommend that we recommend. However, it's the mayor's discretion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll drop a name to you as well that you can let me know whether or not that person was under consideration or not.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Ms. Fish.
Actually, I believe the rules are that he recommends, but the council votes on it.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry, you're correct. Yes, you're correct. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I have an update on that.
Yes, Mr. Hurt, go ahead.
The individual that the mayor is forwarded on to the city manager for council review, that person will be on the consent agenda for February 22nd.
Okay.
The February 8th meeting will be the ordinance proposal for the youth members.
Thank you for clearing that. I must have had those 2 dates mixed up then. Okay, I will. Yes, Serena.
And do we get to review the application?
You need to contact the mayor. I'm not sure.
I'm asking.
I could ask for him. I could ask about that. If he'd be willing to share the application with us to have us look it over. I don't see a problem with that. Any other questions on the board vacancy? Yes, Dr. Black.
So would the application be redacted?
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
it will not be. Anything else? All right, we're going on 2 hours here, so I want to wrap it up. Thank you again for your time. And we'll move on to number 11, future meeting dates, times, locations. So it's the next one is our quarterly meeting, March 4th, 5 o'clock. The first half hour we'll do our board meeting, and then 5:30 we'll open it up to our quarterly meeting. And what I have on the agenda currently is we'll talk about the survey, the Not an Out Town survey. And if you guys have any other agenda items that you may want me to add, please let me know. Feel free to email me. We can talk about the board vacancy or whatever it might be. I will reach out to the social media or the Pantograph and these radio stations. Hopefully they can promote that, and hopefully we'll have a little bit better attendance than our last quarterly meeting. I think last quarterly meeting we had 1 or 2 people. So that's all I have on that. Is there any other questions, comments before we adjourn?
I'll just make a comment. And I know it's been 2 hours, but I just thought it was rather interesting that we finally had a public comment from somebody, and then it ended up being a complainant, and that's the first time I've ever talked to a complainant or knew their name. So that was interesting.
Serena? I think you're muted, Serena.
You're muted.
I keep hitting the wrong button. You want me to just email you the name or what?
Yes, please.
Okay, fine.
Yes, please. And then Mr. Taylor, you will also email me a consideration that you had, correct?
Yeah. Can I just follow up on what Jeff was talking about?
Sure.
yeah, this was the first time, and of course, I guess the individual who requested to speak at public comment is not happy with the board ordinance regulations that the city council put in place that we basically had to agree to, and we have agreed to, is in the way of our process by which we keep the confidentiality of the person making the complaint out of our investigation and out of our review. I also find it interesting that had we had this individual speak to us prior to our review of the conversation that we had, that he could have unduly influenced our discussion of the complaint that was filed. And I think that's primarily by the luck of the draw that he was late to the conversation, and that that it would have been in violation of our board rules that the identity of the individual making the complaint is not known to the board. So just a comment.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was kind of, I don't know if it was the luck of the draw or not, but all right, Ms. Fish, we'll wrap it up with your last, you'll be the last one.
Yes, I just want to commend Mr. Taylor and again, go back to what Chief Wamsley showed us all in the last few weeks, that there is a reason why, and maybe we can forward this to the complainant, why this is kept in confidence so that we can make a decision not knowing who the person is, not knowing the race, not knowing, that we make it on facts. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for your time. We have a motion to adjourn. Mr. Taylor
moved.
and seconded by Mr. Woodard. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Have a good evening.
Take care.
Basically, that guy busted the process.